Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about The Starmen, written by Andrew Smith, the writer of Full Circle. Now as a mature adult writing Big Finish audio dramas. He wrote one story in the TV series, and the rest of his career basically has him write for Big Finish. He has become one of their prominent writers, and here is the Big Finish CD cover, the official release, and you probably guessed by now if you've been watching these videos, I make my own DVD covers. This one I actually did design I did put it all together. Obviously I didn't do the art from the official cover. You might notice the text is a bit off. That is because this is one of the first ones I did with pixel art, if I remember correctly. That's the back of it. Oh look, it's a Starman popping his head up. Hello. But anyway, so that's really cool. That's what I use to keep the CDs in. So this was the first story in the monthly range that we're going to be talking about. It is also the first story in said monthly range that had Matthew Waterhouse return as Adric. He had previously appeared in a special Fifth Doctor box set, and that was supposed to be like a one-off thing, because he doesn't really do acting much these days, and he was heavily criticised during his Doctor Who years, and he kind of did want to distance himself away from it. But with Big Finish treating him so kindly, that he came in for a little box set, and he did so well with that, he decided to stay on. So this is the first story in real life that he returned really to Big Finish. So yeah, there's a lot to delve into. We got our first monthly range story. Monthly range, for those who don't know, is Big Finish's like main series of Doctor Who. Each month they would release at least one audio drama featuring either the 5th, the 6th or 7th Doctor, and rarely they used to have the 8th Doctor, but he's not in it anymore. So we will be talking about earlier ones in terms of real life, because this was actually, I believe it was 2017, yes. And this is actually a really recent one. They've been going since, I believe, 1998. Or was that when they first had Bernie Summerfield? I can't remember. I believe it's 1998. I could be wrong. You could correct me in the bottom when Sirens of Time was released. But anyway, we're talking about the Starmen. Going offline, I couldn't find a lot of people's opinions on this one. It seems to have gone over people's heads. For those who are a fan of this TARDIS team, seem to have picked up the 5th Doctor box set, considering that the real first prize of this era, and they do seem to kind of skip these monthly range story with this TARDIS team. This is the first time that this TARDIS team had been back together with Matthew Waterhouse back. And I think I got to state about the voice acting in this, because with the Doctors and companions and stuff, you do have that age factor, because this has been made 20, 30 years after the original airing of their original story. So obviously the actors have aged, and they can kind of hear it in their voice. But and you can't really help that, you can't blame them for that. But when it comes to you being submersive in the story, I do know that a few people do struggle hearing each of the voices. So before we get into the story, let's talk about each of the voices. Peter Davison as the Doctor, you do hear his age. He does have a much more grizzly to his voice, but he still has the personality, the wit, the kind of underbelly grumpiness of the Fifth Doctor. So with him, I think it's easy that you can put yourself in 1982 and see this story as them adventures. Jacqueline Fielding as Tegan. She sounds a little older. You two kind of struggle a little bit with her, but she's still very good. She still has that lovely little wit about her, and she's still a lot of fun. Matthew Waterhouse, which, you know, he was a teenager back in the original series, and he wasn't a well-versed actor back then. And here, he does sound a lot older. You do kind of struggle picturing him as he looked in 1982. Again, it's not really a criticism. This is just talking about the submersiveness of it, because I know some people might be put off or put onto the story depending on how well the actors replicate their previous voices when they were younger in the TV show. And Matthew Waterhouse, he sounds much older. You can definitely feel that he is he's a lot older than he is portraying. And the thing about this story is that he's now a good actor. At least he's improved a lot. And with this, it does feel like an actor who was once not good now has become good, and tries to replicate his previous work by kind of making him back to a more basic actor. And I do think that his performance does kind of struggle for it. I don't think you could really help it if you were trying to capture that 1982 feel. A lot of lines, he doesn't really sound like how he would have said it back then. It sounds more like he's intentionally weakening his performance to try and replicate that, and sometimes it doesn't work. Like Adric in the TV series would get a lot grumpier, and he could shout if he wanted to. He could put his voice up, and here he never really does that. He kind of, when he does get angry and he does start like shouting, I guess, at people, you do kind of feel like he's trying to reel it in, because he knew that he wasn't a good actor back then. And now Sarah Sutton, you couldn't tell the difference. My God, it's really scary how well she captures Nessa's voice. You literally cannot hear the age of her. And when you listen to this right after watching the TV series, you are kind of like, you don't feel like any age has passed with her. It's really strange, but it's really good. But anyway, that's the submersive of the acting's performance. So let's get on to the actual story, shall we? The story starts off with the Doctor trying to teach Adric how to fly the TARDIS. Like I think I've said previously, this would be an era of the show in which the Doctor tries to teach his companions how to fly the TARDIS. And Adric seems to be struggling, and the Doctor puts like a simulation in deep space, and Adric kind of fails it. So trying to help him, the Doctor takes his companions to a giant space museum where they could learn more about geography and spatial coordinates and stuff, and astronomy. And when they arrive there, the Doctor has stated this is supposed to be a few years before humans travel to outer space, because they're traveling through space now, but they're in like their own galaxy. They're still in their own galaxy, and this place would be the point in which humans will go from travelling around in their own local galaxy, and they will spun off into a different galaxy. But the Doctor has planted the TARDIS in what he believes to be years before that. And so they look around and they find that the entire place is seemingly deserted. As Adric and Nessa go to astrology, Nessa wants to see the view sites, and so her and the Doctor go travelling up to see the view, a viewing deck, and the Doctor predicts it's going to be packed, jammed. But when they arrive, it's actually completely empty, which surprises the Doctor, and he senses that something is wrong. The Doctor then looks at a computer deck, to which he discovers that he'd actually travelled a bit too later than he anticipated, and this is actually supposed to be the very day that humans are supposed to go off into outer space. However, something seems to be wrong with time, as the Doctor knows from his own personal history that, according to history books, the first mission was a round-in success. They travelled out the galaxy and they came back and everything was fine. However, they soon discover there are soldiers over this place, as there's been some sort of attack. The ship went into space and lost contact and seemingly was attacked. And they discover that the ship is actually heading back full of battle damage, and it's heading straight for the base. And here then is also we get with Adric and Nessa, they also meet up with these two girls, a mother and a daughter. Interestingly, one of the mother character is played by Sue Holderness. She is most known to British families as playing Maureen from Only Fools and Horses. So that's really cool. I believe this is the only Doctor Who thing she's done, which is really surprising because there's a lot of joke that like the UK always reuse the same actors. So it's really strange that she's only done one Doctor Who story. I'm so glad it's an 80s TARDIS team one. It makes the feeling around it so much more like you're in the 80s. And there's another character, I believe her name is Autumn. Autumn. And she befriends Adric a bit too much, if you get what I mean. When the ship starts crashing down, the Doctor and Adric come up with a plan in which they're going to take like a magnifying glass that's been travelling in space to show them all the stars and stuff of this museum thing. And they're going to try and put it in between them, and though it won't destroy it, it will hopefully push it off course so it lands miles away. And Adric starts programming it, but the problem is that the machine predicts what it's going to do, and so it tries to do an alternate course as it can feel that this ship is going to destroy it. So Adric actually plans to turn off the computers and do it all manually, and everybody states that this is a massive risk. The calculations on this would be almost unbelievable. You need a computer for this. But as the Doctor points out, Adric has a badge of mathematical excellency. So basically Adric is a smart ass. And with his mathematical skills, actually does land the telescope in the right place and destroys the ship miles away from where everyone is, saving everyone. And this girl, Autumn, she takes in a fancy to Adric because she's supposed to be this female genius, and she sees Adric, who's also a female. Adric, who's also a young genius at around about the same age, and so she kind of takes a liking to him. She even asks Nessa do you and Adric have a thing? And she's like, oh, no, 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 no. And so yeah, and I think a big part of the enjoyment of the story is whether you like Autumn. I think she's okay. She doesn't really stand out, apart from the fact that she kind of takes a liking to Adric, who kind of becomes his girlfriend in the story. I mean, Adric never shows these feelings back to her, but she definitely likes him, takes a fancy to him. My fan theory has always been that Adric is gay because he seems to have a crush on the Doctor, and Matthew Waterhouse is a gay actor, so I always just presumed that Adric was gay. So and that's why he maybe not even notices Autumn. And their story kind of does connect a lot, and like I said, your enjoyment of this story really depends on whether you like this character. And I think she's a good actress playing her. I believe her name is Sophie Wu. Sophie Wu plays her, and she's a great actress, and has had some pretty big roles in TV and movies. But I don't think the character has a much depth to her. She just fancies Adric, and she says she's a genius, but we don't get a lot of scenes in which she gets to prove herself until like the very end. But anyway, I haven't talked about the villains yet. The Doctor and everybody else discovers that there's this red coral that's been taken over the bodies of the people who went on the ship, and they're basically now zombies that work for the Starmen. These creatures made out of pure stars from another universe where the laws of physics are completely different to ours, and they basically want to take over all the planets that are very near suns, so they can get this particular material that they feed off, and they want to take over everything in our universe so that all the people can be used as slaves to mine this particular material. And they seem to have this like a pre-form. They turn into coral, then they turn into gas, or as some characters call it, the red clouds, and then they seem to transform into the Starmen. For some reason, they state that they have two names, that a lot of characters, including themselves, call them the Starmen, but they also have another name. And I thought it'd be really cool if they just didn't say the name, like kept it a mystery. But they do actually name them. They call it like the Cthulhu, the Calatharan, Clathurden. It doesn't say on the back. But yeah, I found it a really odd detail. Now, I think another part of this story is whether you like the villains or not. I think the idea of them is really cool. This metamorphosis race of extra-dimensional creatures that go from coral to this like semi-sentient gas to these really highly intelligent star people. And though I think purely on audio, you do kind of struggle imaging them, as they get a lot of descriptions on that they're holes in space, and they seem to be like a silhouette, but nothing really there. But luckily on the CD cover, we get an image of them that this is actually one of a few stories where the cover, I believe, really helps with the story. It really helps you imagine this world and imagine these characters. You look at that and you can kind of picture what the story might look like if it was made in 1982. So I really like the idea, but my issue with them is that in terms of the way they are used in the plot, with the zombie coral and the sentient gas that turns people into other zombies, and then the starmen themselves when they start talking and stuff. they are really generically used. They are, when they're the Starmen themselves, they are kind of like, we will take over the universe, Doctor. We will destroy everything in our path, and we are from another universe, and we will conquer everything. And when they just talk like that, nothing really to add to it. It does kind of become a problem. The leader, Rodfus, which is a very strange name for an alien creature, played by Peter Guinness, which I believe he was in the Doctor Who animated film Dreamland. He's a very good actor, and he does a fantastic job of playing the leader of the Starmen, and he does have a really cool growly voice. But the script given to him by Andrew Smith is really generic in terms of what a villain says and does. And although we get this cool, like, interesting idea with them, I don't think they're beyond anything other than that. The story also does a lot of splitting the TARDIS team up, and from what I can gather from the other two stories, which I haven't listened to, because this is actually as part of a semi-trilogy with Matthew Waterhouse returning onto the main range, where they have 3 stories back to back. And according to what I've heard, this one's the Adric-centered story, and the other 2 are, one of them is the Tegan and one of them is the Nessa. And so this story has a lot of bits in which Adric basically is in charge of the majority of the story, and he basically works with Nessa and this girl Autumn and her mother to basically figure out what's happening with the villains and what's going on with the coral and stuff. And whilst that's going on, the Doctor actually teams up with Tegan. So basically she is the Doctor's companion in this. She teams up with the Doctor, and they go out into the ship, the broken ship, to try and figure out what's going on there. And later on they get transported to another universe where, well, Tegan does anyway. The Doctor tries to figure out how to get her back, and soon Tegan then goes into this other universe as well. And there's a lot going on, but nothing really sticks out. And I think the problem with it is when we get to part 3, the pacing just really picks up. But I think it might be a bit too fast. And I think the story then focuses on plot beats rather than character moments or letting the audience settle down and getting interested to this plot. The parts 1 and 2-ish are very good at building up the mystery and stakes and these characters and how they interact with one another. But parts 3 and 4 really feel like all that's behind them now, and we're just solely focusing on just defeating the baddies. And and the villains then, they kind of get beaten extremely easily. I couldn't really tell you how they get beaten. Something to do with what Adric and Tegan and Nessa, they're all now trapped in the Starmen's universe, and they've done something because they have like a sort of hive brain, and they kind of destroy this hive brain, and the Starmen just get destroyed by it. But the way it's really paced, you don't really work out what's going on, and you just hear the villains kind of just scream in pain, and then they are gone. And then something happens which means that Autumn actually takes risks, sacrifices herself to keep everybody alive, and this really affects Adric. And in fact, the end of the story that actually has, when the TARDIS team are back in the TARDIS, Adric is like, we're in a time machine, we can go back and save her. And the Doctor's like, no, you can't do that, you can't mess up with established history. And Adric kind of is like, okay, that's fair enough. But you can hear in his voice he's really downbeat about it, and he goes into his room kind of feeling really down. And you do really feel bad for Adric. This story seems to be having the goal to try and get Adric a likeable character. And I think if you want to get this story to make Adric feel much more like a character, I highly recommend it. This story does a great job at making you feel for Adric. He does actually start off as the Adric we all know, kind of complainy and a bit irritating. But over the course of the story, he actually proves himself a lot with his mathematics and his relationship with this girl, and then she dies and you feel really bad for him. Makes you feel like in the next stories in when you watch the TV series again, you do kind of relate to him in that sort of plot. And there you go, that's the Starmen. Overall, it's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag. The plot is a bit basic sometimes, and the villains, despite being really cool in concept, don't get much to do in terms of saying something about the story or the morals of our characters. But our main characters themselves are still a lot of fun to work with. Like I said, Matthew Waterhouse returning to Big Finish is just a fantastic thing to have. Although you might be put off by him sounding so much older, which you can't help. You can't blame him for that. But if you can get past that, then you can be submersive in it. And it does a lot for Adric. It does generally like a lot for Adric. But if you're looking for like the next big Finish audio drama, or you're looking something that's really deep, full of meaning and something with a great wretched plot, I think you might be a bit disappointed here. So yeah, it's a bit on the mixed bag. There you go. So join me next time where we will have our first two-parter in the Fifth Doctor era, where we will go into, I can't remember what year it is, but anyway, the Doctor starts playing cricket. That's all you need to know. So join me next time for Black Orchid. See you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra.